Hello, everyone. We're here pretending to be live. We are we are not live. This is the StreamCast. That's not a StreamCast. We are recording this because we're gonna do our Last Jedi thoughts. Isn't that right, Django?
Yep, and it's not that we don't trust you
Yep.
to not spoil things, but we don't trust you to not spoil things.
Yeah, we. And by spoil things, I mean both of us have been on a media blackout for Star Wars for a while. We've watched both trailers and the D23 footage, and
Yep.
have seen the TV spots to the extent that they sometimes are on TV, and then we leave the room.
Yep.
So there's not a whole lot. We haven't been watching, like, unless you logged into Fortnite to watch the Fortnite clip without telling me.
The last time I went to log into Fortnite, it needed an update that was going to take like 2 hours, and I was like, I didn't enjoy this game that much to start with. So
That's fair. That's completely fair. So we're really out of the loop. So what we're gonna do today is give you our speculation, our hopes to the extent that we have them, our worries to the extent that we have them, and some wild theories, which we have a heck of a lot more of than hopes or worries probably. And as our final big hurrah before we see the movie here soon. And we're gonna do this because we know that our regulars are cool, but I'm also just worried because some of you might have seen the TV spots and will instantly know all the ways that we are wrong, that we are excited to wait 2 more days to find out that we're wrong about.
we're so close. We've made it this far. So
Yep.
we want to see that through to the finish line.
Exactly. But yeah, so let's start with, well, what about this? Let's get kind of the Debbie Downer stuff out of the way. Let's start with what we're worried about, and then we can move on to what we're excited about, what our theories are. So, if you are worried about anything, what would you be worried about?
I feel like the thing that I'm most worried about is also the thing that I most want.
Okay.
But I'm most worried that Leia's send off will feel empty.
Fair.
And not empty in that, like, I know there's only so much they can do, and I really do trust them, so I don't know how much of a worry this is, but like that is, I think, the biggest thing that would keep me from enjoying this film is if they just completely drop the ball with whatever happens with Leia, whether she survives the film or dies a hero, like whatever happens with her, that going south is the thing that most worries me. I think. I think I also have some trepidations about the Emperor, and I don't really know how to like put that, because I don't dislike the idea of bringing the Emperor back.
Okay.
But there's source material from Legends where the Emperor came back and back and back. That was some of my least favorite things in Legends.
Right.
And I think that's what makes me nervous. Again, not so much that I don't trust JJ and Kathleen to see everything through and make things work.
Right.
But I think those are the two biggest things that I'm worried about. It would not be my preference to have a cloned Palpatine, but I also don't think that's what we're going to get. I think JJ is going to do some Force stuff with that instead. But I think in terms of things like I just really, really don't want, those kind of come to the forefront, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm of a similar mind. I guess, at risk of sounding negative, I've kind of just set myself up to assume that whatever they do with Leia is going to be truncated. So
yeah,
the way they kind of have told us the sequel trilogy was supposed to go, to the extent that we're allowed to know these things, is that Force Awakens was Han's movie, Last Jedi was going to be Luke's movie or his journey, and then this was really going to be about Leia revitalizing the Resistance, the Rebellion one more time, and then, where we go from there. And now we're limited to leftover scenes from The Force Awakens. So I believe that how she's going to look and act in the movie is going to work. Her daughter is a character in the movie, so she would have every right to have seen the movie. If Carrie's family has signed off on it and is okay with it, I'm okay with whatever they're doing as long as Carrie's family is happy. But I'm expecting the story to be truncated, and if it is done well, then I'm happily surprised. But I've also kind of pre-forgiven the movie for that because there's only so much they can do.
Right, sure.
I think my biggest worry is tied to the Emperor as well. I think that when I saw Ian McDiarmid on stage at Celebration, it was amazing, but I think I liked it because I was surrounded by people who were excited about it. I think if I had watched that trailer in my room by myself, I would have I think I would have just sunk into my chair because I would have been so afraid in that moment. And for me, yeah, the I don't necessarily want him to be a clone either, but my biggest worry is I don't want the sequel trilogy to undo the first 6 films. I want, and this is the thing that a lot of people kind of disagree on because we don't really know what balance of the Force means. We don't really know what the Chosen One prophecy means. But if you've watched our Journey to the Rise of Skywalker videos, I've talked about how I still believe that Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. It doesn't matter if Obi-Wan changed his mind. It doesn't matter if the Jedi didn't know what the prophecy meant. To me, Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. Whatever balance of the Force meant, he did it at the end of Episode 6. And as far as I know, that involves Palpatine dying. And I just don't want Palpatine's return to undo what Anakin did. Unless and this goes more in my hopes, I suppose, but unless, not only do we get a Force Ghost cameo from Anakin, but Force Ghost Anakin shows up and defeats Palpatine in 9, then I'm okay, Anakin can still be the chosen one and he can still do everything. He just did it in 9 instead of 6. That wouldn't bother me. I love Rey. I adore Rey. You can tell I adore Kylo. But as much as I love them and I like that they are kind of new chosen people for Rey is chosen by the light and Kylo is chosen by the dark, powerful light, powerful darkness, that sort of thing. I like that a lot. I just don't want that to replace Anakin, if that makes sense.
Right. So what you're really saying is you want Kylo to go on a time travel heist to bring Palpatine back to the future. That's what I'm hearing.
I don't know where you heard that at all. I don't know where any of that came from. No, if I never have to hear the words time heist again, it'll be too soon. Let's not bring up what really makes me afraid, please.
but I think that's it's relevant though to the extent that I think that's the biggest thing I'm worried about.
Yes.
And again, I say I'm worried about it without having expectations that I'm going to be disappointed. But it's just when you bill something as the end of a saga, I think it's important how it ends. And I think that's my biggest worry. And again, like I said, it's not something that I feel like super concerned about.
Right.
But I want it to be something that feels like it's a deserving end.
Yeah.
Return of the King won Oscars because of the way that it brought that series home.
Right.
And I feel like that's what I want out of this. Is I want something that's going to not necessarily tie up every loose end ever and answer every question we've had about the Force. I mean, that'd be great if it did.
Right.
But I just want something that feels like an ending.
Right.
So.
No, I'm with you there. And if people go back 2 years to the stuff we did going into The Last Jedi, I think one of the things I was saying all along is I came out of Force Awakens thinking that Rey was going to be a Skywalker. And what I kept saying was that I don't know how Episode 8 could make Rey not a Skywalker without negating all of the stuff that happened in Force Awakens and make a lot of the iconography that she has work for me. But I also wasn't against that being possible. I was like, if they can make her not a Skywalker and make it work, I'm for it. I just can't conceive of how to do that because I'm not Ryan
Right.
Johnson. And in my opinion, Ryan did that. He made her not a Skywalker in a way that used the iconography that JJ used appropriately. So, I would say I don't want time travel because, I mean, obviously we have some form of time travel with the World Between Worlds, and if JJ used that in some way, that would be so awesome to see, just as an animation fan. But like, there's a difference between the way Star Wars has kind of done it and Back to the Future or
Right.
Endgame, and
Or Star Trek.
Or Star Trek. So I would say that I don't want time travel unless they find a way to do it that works in Star Wars that doesn't feel like cheating. And if they can do it, then that's great. That's just what I'm worried about, is that they can't find a way to do it without it being cheating.
Right. And I think one other thing that I would rather not see, and again, I say all this knowing that if they do it well, I wouldn't mind.
Right.
But when it comes to Rey's parentage, I've never cared if Rey was a Skywalker. I've never thought that she was. But I've never wanted Rey's parentage to feel like a stretch.
Fair. That's totally fair.
And I've always thought, and I know some people are dead set on like Rey Kenobi, and I don't want to necessarily come at them.
Right.
But those things start to feel like a stretch to me. And if it's, oh, Rey is secretly descended from Plo Koon or something like
right.
that. Like I want it to feel like those are the types of things, like I want it to make sense in the context of what we've seen.
Right.
And as like if you could tell me a story where Rey is a, half Hutt or something and we just never knew it.
Right.
And it works, then it works. But I've one of the things I've been cautious about with the sequel trilogy all along is that we would want Rey to be someone so badly that we would take anything.
Right.
And that's not something I want.
That's fair. But with that, let's, with those being our big trepidations, what is there anything? I know you say you're trying to go in with no expectations, but is there anything you would particularly like to see, big plot point wise, or even just a small Easter egg, just some kind of nice thing?
Well, I'll save my big one because I think it's your big one, and you'll be more excited about it than I am. So, what my list of things I want to see are cool new Force things. I feel like every Star Wars movie we've seen has shown us cool new Force things.
Yep.
And whether that's some type of overarching Force philosophy, which would just rock my socks off, that'd be great. Or if it's just a new Force power that we haven't seen before, like I feel like every Star Wars film has done something, even like Rogue One has done things to like expand the ways that we think about the Force. And I think that's one of the biggest things I would want. In terms of like Easter eggs, I would be over the moon if we get to hear someone say the word Sheev out loud in this film. And I know this is something that you and I disagree about, maybe. But I want that vindication so much. I would love to get unexpected cameos. I didn't expect Yoda going into this or going into the Last Jedi. I really want, and this is something that you and I have talked about before, but I want every character that we have to kind of get a story. Again, not to necessarily have like, oh, every character has to have their half hour or whatever. But again, if this is the last that we're going to see of these characters, maybe some of them for a long time, if not forever, I want all of them to have an ending, not necessarily a death or a redemption, but and I am a low key Bendemptionist, I suppose, but like I don't need those endings to be a certain way, but I want them all to have an ending that's kind of deserving of their characters and the time and attention that the sequel trilogy has asked of us as an audience.
Right.
What about you? What are some of your big ones?
My big ones. So I have a few more. I do have expectations. I can't lie. I have expectations for the film.
Sure.
But I went to Last Jedi with expectations, and they were undermined. And I love The Last Jedi. So for me, it's not necessarily I need that. There's a difference between expectations and needs. I have little I need this movie to be. I have lots I'd like the movie to be. As long as I get something good, I'll be happy. I would love Anakin's Force Ghost in this, and I
That
think
was
that
my other one.
yep, and I think that the way JJ and Kathleen have been talking about this is like bringing back Palpatine was the obvious thing to do because he was the puppet master of the first 6 films, and if you want to me, I'm like, yeah, well, if it's obvious to bring Palpatine back, it's obvious to bring someone else back too. Just saying. Right. And I think that if you're gonna finish Palpatine's story, even if Anakin can't interact because of whatever the Force Ghost rules are, it'd be nice to see him.
Right.
And I said this on our TLJ stream that I think because I am a high key Vendimtanist, Anakin returning would be a great way to kind of be a catalyst in Kylo's return to being Ben Solo, or just to not being Kylo, even if he doesn't want to take that name up again. And that's something I'd really like to see. I personally would like it if Kylo could not die, because I love him as a character, and even if we don't get him on screen anymore, I would love like the post-movie 9-book series by Claudia Gray all about Kylo Ren and his life after the movies. But if he does, he does. Like that's not one of the ones I'm holding out for. I'm kind of expecting it. I'm expecting him to die. I'm hoping he doesn't, I guess is the way I would put it. I think if somebody from the main cast is going to die, I think it's going to be him. But that, I don't want it, but that's kind of, I'm mentally preparing myself now so I don't make too much of a mess of myself in the theater. But that's what I'd like to see.
Reminds me when I saw Thor 2 in theaters and Loki died.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just surrounded by like 14-year-old girls that are just sobbing. And I'm like, have you seen a comic book movie? Like, he's literally going to be alive again by the end of this film.
Well,
and he was. So.
I enjoyed Thor 2 a lot more than you did. Not that that's hard to do. But even I knew that, like,
not at all.
even I knew that Loki was not dead. I was like, no.
I would rather read the life and times of Nora Wexley than watch Thor 2 again.
We're getting saucy in these days before the Rise of Skywalker. We're just putting that positivity moniker to the test over here. But that's all right. I really hope that Nora Wexley is not in the Rise of Skywalker. As long as we're on that, I really hope anybody from Star Wars Resistance is. I would love them. I don't know that. I think it would be kind of distracting if they were a major player, but if they got kind of like Rogue One level cameos, somebody from Resistance, I think that would be good. So the Colossus will probably be in whatever that giant every ship ever shot is. But I think that's really where I'm at. I don't have a whole lot because I don't know what the heck is going on based off of what we've seen.
Right.
I feel like I've been telling people I think the Rise of Skywalker is either going to be the greatest hot mess in the history of the world or the worst hot mess in the history of the world. I don't know which one it is, but it's going to be either a spectacular hot mess or a terrible hot mess. I'm just excited for a hot mess of a movie. And there can be,
and I think there are some other smaller things that I think that I wouldn't mind seeing, and references to the animated shows I think is up there on my list as somebody that I didn't get on board with the animated shows right off the bat, but as somebody that's into them now, I would we already think we see the ghost,
right?
And so like I would love another offhand reference to to Hera,
right?
I mean if we go to like one of the lingering questions I've had from the Aftermath series is, Thrawn was doing something for Palpatine and we never found out what that was.
Right.
And if that was a way to get a Thrawn reference
right.
in this film, I wouldn't mind that. Even if we don't know what happened with Thrawn at the end of Rebels, I would be over the freaking moon if somebody mentioned Ray Sloan.
Right.
Whether or not we see like, 95-year-old Grand Admiral on the bridge of a Star Destroyer or something like that. Like I wouldn't mind that either. But at the same time, as much as I would love a lot of those things, I wouldn't want any of those things to take away from the story that we're telling.
Right.
In this film too.
I agree. But yeah, so I think that's kind of where I'm at. But if we had some wild theories, so like stuff we've seen on the trailer, we see them riding on space horses outside of a Star Destroyer. What do you think is going on with that? Can they breathe in space now? Are they in an atmosphere? What's your gut?
I mean, I think there's going to be some type of atmosphere involved. I
Yeah.
think that whatever the weird thing going on with the asteroid, like I think it's going to be a place where you can survive. Kind of, because that's what it looks like. It looks like
Yeah.
it has some type of atmosphere around it. It looks like the Star Destroyers are coming up out of, the water and the ice and
Yeah.
stuff that we see. Like I don't really know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be cool. Like,
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that.
I think
Maybe they're like in a race. Maybe they're just having like their own little, Kentucky Derby moment. Star Destroyer Downs.
we started with a pod race. We're gonna end with a horse race
There you go.
on a Star Destroyer.
We did just have a father race.
We did, so it's
in the Last
possible.
Jedi. So
It's
why not?
possible. And I think that wherever they are, it's going to be a case of atmosphere. I think it could just be as simple as there's a nebula with atmosphere, and it's going to be something else to make all the science nuts mad about whether or not it's possible. Yeah. But it's just there's a space thing with atmosphere, or I think that could be where the crazy force stuff comes in. Is that it's some sort of crazy force bubble or something. When you go through the footage you and I have seen of it, there's lightning everywhere, and lightning is like the call sign of Palpatine. So I think whatever that space is tied to Palpatine in some way, and I think that's kind of what's going to be going on there.
Well, and I also like. What do you think about the Knights of Ren? Like, we know that we're going to see the Knights of Ren again.
The greatest boy band in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, what do you think that's going to be about?
So I think that they are going to start, on Kylo's side. I think there's a really good chance we're going to see a schism within the First Order. That right now the First Order is so much more powerful than the Resistance, because the Resistance, we read in Resistance Reborn that they've grown a little bit, but they don't have a lot. And then presumably the Star Destroyer fleet is going to go to the First Order. So they're going to just be massively more powerful. I think that there's going to be a schism. I think you can see the one shot of like the giant red gun firing down on a planet's surface. That planet's surface looks like the same planet that Kylo's fighting on with the red background. And then there's that one guy that he's like impaling with the side of his saber. And that was the kind of sketchy thing where the Vanity Fair online article called that person a Knights of Ren to begin with, and then they had to retract it. And we never learned, like, did Vanity Fair have to retract it because it really isn't a Knight of Ren? Or did they have to retract it because it was a Knight of Ren and they couldn't reveal that information yet?
Right, sure.
So it's very possible that Kylo will get betrayed by the Knights of Ren or betray them himself. I think that Richard E. Grant's character, Pride, is going to come in, maybe side with Hux. What side Palpatine is on in that whole mess, I don't know. But I think that the door to the Resistance winning is going to be a fractured First Order. Because you and I have both talked about how Kylo is not as much of an ideologue like Hux is.
Right, sure.
And, to me, Kylo wants to be Supreme Leader so no one bosses him around anymore. And so I think that Hux, there's no way Hux likes Kylo Ren as Supreme Leader. There's just no way.
Right.
So I think we're going to see something of that tension.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, even especially for Hux, who got like beat around so much in the Last Jedi, like I feel like there's going to be a breaking point there.
Yeah.
There somewhere. What about one of the things we speculated about in our conversation about the Last Jedi? Do you think we'll see Phasma in this film?
I would lose it. Like, I'd be so happy about it, because like one of my complaints with the Last Jedi, not with the movie but with the marketing, is telling us that Phasma was going to be back. Because I think that moment would have been so awesome if you didn't know she was coming. I've forgiven them because Gwendolyn Christie on the Last Jedi press tour was the greatest gift to mankind. So I'm glad we weren't robbed of that. But film-wise, I think that would have been a cool moment. So I would I'd love it if this time she just showed up and she's like, not dead, suckers. Especially if she's like not with the First Order at all. Literally, she just shows up. And Finn is like, aren't you dead? And she's like, no. She's like, are you with the First Order? She's like, no. I just came to shoot you in the face. And then they just have a fight for no reason. I'd be all over it. I'd be all for it.
I have always thought that if Phasma came back in episode 9, even before we knew anything about it, that it would be Sans helmet, and it would just be like full Gwendolyn Christie with the and I don't know. That's what I would want if Phasma comes back again.
What about this one? What if Phasma was really the reincarnated Palpatine?
There you go. I'm on board.
I mean, we've never seen Phasma's face other than the little crack in the helmet. And we know Palpatine's coming back somehow. And their names both start with P.
She did make the suit out of his ship, so it's like, there you go. It's right there.
Phasma could be Palpatine. Although I was still on 3PO's Palpatine. I'm keeping that as my name on Twitter until this movie's done. It's like, we'll see. How about that? What do you think that shot in the final trailer where 3PO's like, taking one last look at my friends? Do you think that's what do you think about that? Do you think that's just like trick of a trailer, or do you think 3PO's dying? What do we got?
I really don't know, because like one of the things that's true about Star Wars is that droids both can and also rarely do last a long time.
Yeah.
And R2 and 3PO have been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't know that we have a right to expect them to just survive into perpetuity.
Right.
But you know, I know there's a lot of speculation online, or at least what I've read about it, is that there's something going on with his memory core.
Yeah.
Being backed up or erased.
Yeah, and like Zori might have found a disc for him or something like that.
And there's some stuff that goes on in the Poe comic too about 3PO's memory core also, which is, I mean, like, I knew that speculation was out there, and it probably stems partially from that, because people read that way before I did. But if I had to put a bet on it, that's probably what I think is going on. You know, but if we just get, you know, all Rambo'd up 3PO going out in a blaze of glory, you know, that's what that poster seemed to suggest.
Exactly. Oh man. So
he goes back to his Attack of the Clones battle droid training. And
that'd be great.
Jedi dogs.
He finds it in his memory core somewhere. That'd be so good.
Quite beside myself.
My kind of wacky theory, and I have been reticent to really talk about this, because I think anytime you bring up Rey's origin story, people are very protective of her, and understandably protective of her. And if the Rise of Skywalker doesn't touch it at all, and she just is Rey from Jakku, and the Force just happened to pick her, and that's how, like, I'm totally fine with it. Like, I don't say a theory with her because I don't like what they've done. But I think it, you know, I think there's still room for some speculation, because I do think that Ryan did some things that JJ was not expecting. But we also know that JJ liked what Ryan did, and we know that JJ said he's not going to retcon it. So 2 years ago, before Last Jedi came out, I did a video on Rey's parentage theories. And one of them that I put in there, I almost talked myself into, even though I didn't believe it while I was doing the video, was the Rey Palpatine theory. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think she's going to be a descendant of Palpatine, because I don't think Ryan is going to, or I don't think JJ is going to retcon Ryan. Unless she's the grandchild of Palpatine, and Palpatine's kid ended up being a drunk on Jakku, you know, then it's not really a retcon. I think that it's possible, because if you've read the Aftermath series, you know, there's this hugely important observatory to Palpatine on Jakku. And so much of the book and comic elements that came out in 2015 and a little bit into 2016 made Jakku really important. And then Last Jedi came out, and they really went away from that. And the stuff that was in Aftermath and that sort of thing is the reason why I kind of believe them, that JJ at least contemplated Palpatine coming back, but had left it open to what others would want to do. I just think it's interesting that Palpatine happens to have this big observatory on Jakku, and Rey happens to come from Jakku. Now, did the Force pick Rey because she was near Palpatine, and it wanted to put a source of light by Palpatine? Maybe. Like, it could be that simple, and she could just be a scavenger. So, like, again, I'm not saying that she has to be, but she could also be the result of some kind of experimentation by Palpatine. And that would not change her parentage theories. Her parents could have sold her to servants of Palpatine for drinking money, and they could be dead in a Jakku grave. But that Rey could be connected to Palpatine in some way. And I know people don't like that because they want her power to be hers, but she could be force sensitive all on her own, and that's why Palpatine had interest in her. Like, I'm not saying this because I need her to have a reason for her power. I'm simply saying it because I think that when you have the grandson of Darth Vader, who's going to have to be involved with Palpatine, the man who seduced his grandfather to the dark side, having the counterpoint to Kylo in some way being connected to Palpatine, I think would be really strong in a 9-movie arc. And that's the only reason.
Well, and I don't think that it's necessarily a retcon to say that Kylo lied or misunderstood the vision that he had about Rey either.
Right.
And in her parentage either. So when he says, those things, I don't think it necessarily, at least to me, wouldn't count as a retcon for that.
Right.
Either to just have been a bold-faced lie, or for him to have just been mistaken based on what the Force had shown him. I think, especially given that we had already seen evidence of both of them having been mistaken about what the Force was showing them. So
yeah, I think it's very possible that Kylo was telling her to some degree the truth as he understood it, but also embellished it. And my main point to that is Vader told Luke the truth about being his father. I think then it's not unreasonable to think that Kylo's telling Rey the truth in order to try to like convince her to stay with him. But I think the whole like they sold you for drinking money and they're dead in a pauper's grave. Like, I think that could just be him being typical Skywalker dramatic.
Right, sure.
But he could know that, he could think her parents are unimportant because he doesn't know who they are. Like, I don't know who they are. They're just whoever. So, like, I think there's room for him to be telling the truth, but also embellishing and also being wrong.
I think so too.
So I think that's kind of a when people speculate about that conversation, I think there's room for all of the above.
Right.
What about the title? What about The Rise of Skywalker? Not Rise of the Skywalker, but The Rise of Skywalker. As we get closer, any gut instinct?
I will say, and again, I say all this not assuming that I'll be disappointed if I'm wrong. I don't think the way that people have been speculating since we got the title that it's going to be like a new Force user order. It's not. We're not Jedi anymore. We're Skywalkers. Like, I wouldn't be disappointed if that was the case.
Right.
I don't think that's the case. I think it's a reference to Kylo. And I think that's what it's always been a reference to, is a reference to Kylo. It could also be a reference to Anakin if Anakin's involved in this in any way. That's where I would put my money if I was to place a bet.
That's
fair. That it's a reference to Kylo's redemption or Anakin's involvement in the defeat of Palpatine once and for all. Like, either of those things is what I would expect more than anything else.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't mind seeing Poe Dameron Jedi Warrior either. So everybody's a Skywalker now.
I think that'd be great. I mean, that was my gut reaction, is that Skywalker would be like the new Force Order. And I don't know that I think that's unlikely. I think the phrasing of The Rise of Skywalker versus The Rise of Skywalkers or Rise of the Skywalker, I think if the was in a different place, then it would definitely be a reference to some kind of new Force unit. But because it's The Rise of Skywalker, I don't know. I still kind of hold out. If it's not a Force group, I still wouldn't put it past Palpatine to have named something Skywalker as a big F.
Oh yeah.
To like, like I'm going to name it the thing. And I think that's possible. But yeah, I mean, I certainly hope that it's a reference to Kylo, because even though people somehow forget the lines that are in the film. Kylo is a Skywalker, and can count as Skywalker. And I want my boy to come home to the good side. So, I would say
it's always funny to me when people argue that he's a Solo and not a Skywalker. I just want to say, have you ever been to a family reunion before?
Right.
Like you know that's not how that works, right?
Right.
Like, oh, my name is different, therefore I am not this anymore.
Right.
Like, okay, sure.
It's just so weird to me. And like
I mean, it could
literally,
also be Shmi's in there somewhere too. Maybe she survived somehow, and
right.
um,
Well, and Luke himself in Last Jedi says that mighty Skywalker blood. Like,
yeah,
Luke
yeah.
thinks he's a Skywalker, so I don't know what you want. So yeah, that's kind of I JJ claims that the title will make sense when we see the movie. So I'm just hoping that that's true, or it's just a big troll, and then you get to the movie and the title of the movie is actually something else. I don't know.
Do you have any just like outright crazy theories? Like the craziest
The
idea you've
crazy
had?
there. So, well, besides 3PO being Palpatine, this whole time, I mean, the whole time, like even since the
Yep.
Phantom Menace, he's just always been Palpatine because
Yep.
that's how Palpatine knew things. Um, it starts to make sense. No, I think this isn't really a crazy idea, but it's a crazy want. Like the thing that would make me stand up out of my seat and cheer. I really want like a part where Kylo is fighting or facing down Palpatine. It would depend on what form Palpatine is taking. And he is decided that he wants to take Palpatine out. And I really want Palpatine to say a line, something to the effect of like, "Come, boy, finish what your grandfather started," or something like that, just to like pull back on Kylo's line. I would think that would be a really fun callback. But like just in terms of, I feel like my Rey is like a Force experiment of Palpatine thing is crazy. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that's just my crazy idea. I would love some kind of crazy, like if Palpatine survived because of some sort of weird world between worlds crap, like that would be cool, as long as it doesn't negate the end of Episode 6 somehow. Because I don't, even though I believe that Rey and Kylo talk using the world between worlds without knowing it, you don't have to explain that in the movie. I don't think we're really going to see the world between worlds in any way where you have to explain what the world between worlds is to the audience. But
Right.
I would love that.
And along those lines, I think a lot of people, either low key or high key, think that there's going to be some like moment stuff going on with Vader's helmet that somehow either Anakin or Palpatine is somehow bound to the helmet. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I
I'd
think
be
you could
pretty
do.
okay with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it too. Honestly, I think you could do that without a ton of like explanation, and like you don't have to like walk everybody through the the Charles Soule comics, or like the
exactly.
Vader Lord of the Sith stuff for that to be. I mean, and we've seen stuff like that in Legends too, where people are bound to the objects or places and things like that. I think my favorite theory, and I just came up with this the other day, is that when we look at a 2 hours and 20-minute runtime, that like the film is going to be resolved in the first hour, and the second hour and 20 minutes is just a long series of Return of the King goodbye scenes, and like everything gets resolved in like 45 minutes, and we get an hour and a half of, and or even better yet, like an 80s high school drama, like where everybody gets their credit scene.
I'm okay with that, but instead of an hour and 20 minutes of goodbyes, it's an hour and 20 minutes of Baby Yoda.
There you go. I'm down.
That's really, I mean, if they just replaced the entirety of the Rise of Skywalker with Baby Yoda, I wouldn't even be mad. But yeah, that's really, I think, what we have for now. I think we'll call the discussion here, and we'll know in a couple of days how our ideas are. So hold on. How our ideas are. So if you haven't already, you can see below Professor Django is our links to our places. Go ahead and follow there. Please subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you enjoyed the conversation. I don't know why you would if you didn't enjoy the conversation, I suppose. And we will be back with a lot of Rise of Skywalker content, and still Mandalorian content, because the new episode of Mandalorian is tomorrow, here very soon. And until next time. Keep it real and fly casual.
Bye, guys.
Cooking can be fun.